We will leave it there at Oakwell because there's some huge breaking news to bring you that Ange Postecoglou is going to be sacked by Tottenham Hotspur as their head coach. So delivering the Europa League title at the end of the season, not enough to keep Postecoglou in his job. He always says that he wins something in his second season. Well, he did that, but Tottenham's performance in the Premier League, not, you would think, in the eyes of Daniel Levy, at least up to the required standard for Spurs. 22 Premier League defeats for Tottenham Hotspur last season, the most in a 38-game season by a team not to be relegated. And that means that Ange Postecoglou has paid with his job. 101 games in charge, 47 wins, 15 draws and 39 defeats. So let's head live to Michael Bridge, our reporter, for instant reaction on something that even despite that success, Michael, we sensed was coming.
Well, yes and no. I mean, many supporters were backing with Ange after winning the first European trophy for 41 years, first trophy of any kind for 17 years. But of course, 17th isn't deemed good enough. 22 defeats, as you mentioned. The league table doesn't make great reading at all. Now, there were reports at the end of last season that Spurs were potentially going to make a change regardless of whether Spurs won the Europa League or not. But there was so much celebration afterwards. 225,000 literally 2 weeks ago. And then, of course, Ange Postecoglou, as we know, he loves a soundbite. I always win things in my second season. Another mic drop moment, season 3. But then he did say the day later, before the Brighton press conference, sometimes the main actor in season 3 gets killed off. So it looks as if Ange Postecoglou does not get a season 3. And it looks like his time at Tottenham Hotspur is up.
Do you think, Michael, that there was at all amongst the supporters a sea change after beating Manchester United in Bilbao, that some of those who wanted Ange Postecoglou out might have changed their mind because of what he delivered in the Europa League?
I think so. I think, for Tottenham Hotspur, winning the Europa League, of course, Champions League football, fantastic. But you speak to a lot of Spurs fans, it's not really about that. It's about winning that trophy. Everyone likes to rib Tottenham about not winning trophies, and they've won that first trophy in 17 years. It's not just any old trophy as well, Rob. The Europa League is a very big trophy. We can talk about how difficult it was this season as long as you like. That doesn't say it when you write down Tottenham Hotspur on that trophy. It says Tottenham Hotspur 2024-2025 season. People say to me, oh, it was a boring final. It doesn't matter. Spurs won the Europa League and they got that trophy and Champions League football. And of course, Champions League football, very lucrative. But even so, it's not deemed good enough, and it looks as if Spurs will be looking for a new manager.
Well, that search, you would think, is already underway. So let's just bring you the information that we can already give you about Tottenham's pursuit of a new manager. Brentford boss Thomas Frank is understood to be the leading contender to replace Ange Postecoglou. There have been no negotiations between the two clubs yet, but Thomas Frank does have a release clause in his contract. And Sky Sports News understands the club will not stand in his way if he wants to go to a bigger club. So we'll come back to you, Michael, on that. Another person that you'll have dealt with personally throughout the course of their stay in the Premier League, Thomas Frank, and someone who certainly has done an excellent job in West London.
Sorry, Rob, are you talking to me?
Yeah, just your thoughts on the job that Thomas Frank has done and what sort of candidate he would be for Tottenham.
Yeah, look, Rob, you're absolutely right. Like Postecoglou, he's a very engaging character. Of course, there's a lot of admirers in Thomas Frank here, but he doesn't have massive Europa League experience. And of course, he'd be a Champions League manager if Spurs did bring in Thomas Frank. And of course, one of his first games will be in the Super Cup. So he could win a trophy early August against PSG. So quite remarkable if it is Thomas Frank. Of course, we're going to wait to hear if that is the case. But look, it's a normal thing when the board members always look for alternatives. And of course, some Spurs fans will say, look, as brilliant as it was as winning a trophy, there were defeats against Ipswich at home, defeats against Leicester at home, a really poor performance at Everton in that first half away. And then some Spurs fans were thinking, is this the time? But it wasn't the time. Daniel Levy stuck with Ange Postecoglou and he did deliver with that trophy. There are probably concerns with the league form last season and the Europa League, and you're going up another 5 to 10 levels from the Europa League to Champions League. Can this current squad handle Champions League and League? You can't rest players in the early stages of the Europa League. You've got to go full strength in the Champions League, of course. You've got to go full strength in the Premier League. So that might have been something that Daniel Levy was thinking about as well. And of course, Thomas Frank now is a very experienced Premier League manager.